Hello, my name is Dylan Rhodes, and today I will be presenting on the song Sailboats by Linda Niamath as part of MTNA's World Music Presentation. Just a little bit about Linda Niamath. She was born in 1939 in Vancouver, British Columbia, so she's a Canadian composer. When she was 5 years old, she asked her parents if she could start pursuing music and learn the piano. And she also started composing at the age of 5 as well. So she began those two things at the same time. And from a very young age, she was recognized as a very prolific composer and did a lot of writing and performing in her life. She mainly wrote music for young pianists, for education purposes, for pedagogical purposes, but she also wrote music for ballet and animated film. And so there's a lot of music in her output that can be used for teaching as well as ballet and animated film. In 2018, she was an honorary fellow in the Royal Conservatoire of Music, which is a very high honor for somebody to receive. So just a very prolific composer who gave us a lot in the way of education music for young students, young pianists. So in 2004, she published a series of 10 preparatory pieces in a series called At the Beach. You'll notice the cover is very descriptive. It's very fun to look at. And a lot of the songs in this series are good for students who want a good recital piece, something short, but something also that they feel like they're accomplishing something big. And they all sound very descriptive. They really match the energy of their title. And so one thing I found really cool is that in each of her books, Linda Niamath actually includes a kind of instruction for the teacher to reference whenever they're teaching these songs and the pedagogical intent behind each of them, and just things for the student to grasp on as they're learning these songs. So the song I'll be doing from At the Beach is called Sailboats. It is about a 35 to 40-second piece, very descriptive. You can see the wind going through the sails and the waves rocking up against the boat. But we'll talk about some of the features of sailboats now. So from the very beginning, one of the biggest challenges that the student may have is the pedal. There is pedal throughout the entire work. It's a very important aspect of the work. The student really have to make sure they hone in their coordination between. Of course, if the student isn't tall enough to reach the pedals or they just aren't comfortable yet, the teacher can always help them out. But I would really encourage teachers to try to challenge their student and have them play the pedal, because it's a really good way for them to begin and they can kind of understand the pedal's function, especially in a piece like this where you can hear you'll notice in the measure 5, the long sweeping line that's going up with the pedal down. That'll really help them understand, oh, this is making all the sounds that I play last throughout the entire time. There's also a lot of hand crossing that happens because of that, because you're crossing your hands going up the keyboard like this. And that's another thing that they can practice and kind of understand that the keyboard just repeats itself as you go higher and higher. The next thing that happens that I found really cool is that the hands are in separate dynamics whenever the left hand has the melody. And this is something that we as pianists that have played for a longer time are realizing, oh, we need to voice this out to make sure that the melody sticks out. But that isn't something that comes naturally to some students or to anybody for that matter. And so putting two dynamic levels for each of the hands and understanding that, oh, like my left hand is the melody in this moment. So I need to make sure that I don't play my right hand too loud to cover up the melody. That's a really cool aspect that I find that in her writing, that it's something we don't think about. And it's a really cool way for the student to learn how to voice at a young age. There's also crescendo and decrescendo. The student has to practice finding the peak of a phrase and then decrescendoing back down. And there's also third finger development. The student has to practice playing with just their third finger. You'll notice in the measure that I highlighted here that the third finger plays the melody, and it's that like that the entire time, which is 3 3 3 3. And so it's a really cool way to develop a proper hand shape, proper hand technique. Lastly, there's the use of ritardando. Throughout the piece, it happens twice in total, and this is a way for the student to really grasp the concept of a musical breath and understand what's happening in a larger sense, the architecture of the piece, if you will. And then there's also 8VA. It's something you can highlight to the student, be like, oh, well, this is 8VA. We're going to play it an octave higher, and understand that, as well as the fermato at the very end. And the fermato actually isn't on any note in particular. So this is a really cool way to open up a dialogue about what fermato means on a rest and what it means in terms of our pedal's going to be down, but we're not playing any extra notes. So it's just we're letting the musical phrase breathe. So this piece is a lot to kind of develop a student's sense of musical phrase and voicing and pedal. And those are probably the three big things that I would emphasize to the student whenever they're learning this. And just have fun and make sure the student has fun playing it. It's a really fun piece to play, speaking from experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.